Let me call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is a regularly called and convened Greer City Council meeting called and scheduled for January 24th. Having called the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Councilman Jay Arrowwood, if he would, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll offer an invocation for the council. If you'd like to join us, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I come to you tonight thanking you for this day that you have created. I thank you for everything that's going on around us in this city that is good. You have blessed this city, and I thank you. I thank you for these fellow council members. I thank you for the time that they put in to serve. Help us here all tonight to be servants of you. As we go about the business of the city, give us the wisdom that we need so we can make the choices that will be pleasing to you. In your holy name I pray. Amen.
In public forum, we have two requests to appear this evening. First would be Ms. Chris Cato. Ms. Cato, if you would, if you'd like to take the podium, if you'll just state your name as a matter of the record, we would appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Chris Cato. Nice to see you all again. I represent JBM Leasing. I was asked to be here tonight to express any interest that JBM has in purchasing the Allen Bennett property. As you know, Ordinance 34-2016, up for second reading tonight, provides for the sale of the Allen Bennett property to 313 Memorial Drive according to its November 22nd contract terms, which was for approximately $1.8 million and offered at the November 22nd council meeting. At that same meeting, JBM made a cash offer of $2.1 million, $300,000 more. The following day, JBM increased its offer to $2.2 million cash, $400,000 more. Surprisingly, unbelievably, and without reasonable explanation, all of JBM's offers were rejected, and JBM was told that the council had accepted the significantly lower $1.8 million offer. All this, even though the city's attorneys concede in legal documents that they filed that the city is under no legal obligation and is not legally bound by that $1.8 million contract. We now encourage the city to table the second reading of and the vote on this ordinance, or in the alternative, to vote to reject the ordinance. JBM has been provided documents which evidence that the prior process to sell the property and which resulted in the $1.8 million offer and our $2.2 million offer was not conducted in a fair or equitable manner. At this point, JBM reiterates its November 23rd offer in the amount of $2.2 million and encourages the council to accept this offer as it is the highest and best offer by a significant amount, almost $500,000. If you reject JBM's offer, we protest the acceptance of the other offer, and we protest the implementation of any process tonight to auction off or bid on the property as without appropriate notice. JBM encourages the council to implement a fair and equitable process for the sale of the property, which it will participate in, and urges the council to give adequate advance notice of the process to all interested properties. Implementing such a process will result in the city realizing the greatest purchase price for the property and the greatest benefit for the citizens and taxpayers of Greer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Brian Martin. Mr. Martin, if you'll state your name as a matter of the record, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and Council, my name is Brian Martin. I live at 3 Meadowbreeze Court in the city of Greer and have a office in 212 Trade Street in downtown, and I'm here on behalf of 313 Memorial Drive LLC, and Mr. Jim Benson, prior behind that. As you guys know, we've been dealing with this issue on the Allen Bennett Hospital property for some time. We've gone through process that, despite the claims, was inequitable and fair. I believe you guys are very aware of that process. I'm not going to go through that. That at the time that on November the 22nd, when you passed first reading, that the offer from Mr. Benson for $1.8 million as the purchase price for the real estate was the highest offer that you had in front of you. And there's no requirement by law with regard to accepting a higher offer or doing anything in that process. But I once again stand before you to ask you to stand behind your commitment to sell the property under the purchase price that was agreed to back in November. Despite the claims of the other parties, I'll remind you that that offer was accepted, was the highest offer, and you moved forward on that basis to pass this ordinance at a first reading, and we ask you to do that again, passing it with a second reading. Although I understand pressure is being applied through legal action, threats and intimidation from other parties, encouraging you to go back on your word, and emphasis that you have no legal obligation. You guys know what's right, and I believe in you in doing the right thing with regard to this, and that you all understand if you allow the tactics and threats of lawsuit to derail the economic development process that we have, that you're going to be able to expect those tactics to be used in every economic development project in the future. If anybody can just file a lawsuit to change your mind, you're going to be dealing with that lawsuit situation every time a project comes in and there's a disgruntled competitor involved. We have a process in place for projects that are designed to protect the interests of people just like my client from their plans being made public and their plans being undermined by a competitor. That's exactly why the information on economic development projects is exempted from the Freedom of Information Act until those projects are made public. There's a reason for maintaining that confidentiality. We've respected this process the entire way from Mr. Benson in our submission. We only released his involvement in naming this project because it seemed like the right thing to do. But the terms and the conditions with regard to that project, are still hopefully confidential from our side, understanding that our competitors would like to make that information public and would like to undermine the process through that. I'm here asking you to hold true to the process, because if you don't do it now, you won't be able to do it in the future. Again, I'm asking you to stand behind the existing agreed purchase price for the real estate and your commitment to my client and pass second reading of Ordinance 34-2016. I do have some additional information regarding the project, Project Forest, that includes information, more specifics on the planned development of the property and job creation that I'd like to pass out to you. Again, I ask for your consideration of this additional information for your decision tonight, but I most definitely ask you to stand behind your original commitment and the purchase price that was agreed upon back in November. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council, contains your packet this evening the minutes from the council meeting on January 10th, 2017. I'll enter a motion to receive.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin, Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council departmental reports are contained in your packet as well, too. Certainly that information can be expounded on by department head or Mr. Driggers if you have any questions in regards to those. Mr. Seifert joins us this evening, not only to give us our financial report, but also looks like some additional information in regards to our finances.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. As a way of introduction tonight, in your packages each month is a financial summary that we provide to you. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to print that out, but we will be going through these graphs tonight to help you understand the data going into that, what the graphs represent, and I will be referencing page numbers to turn to as we go through the graphs. If you have it on your tablet there, you'll be able to scroll to those pages also. But the graphs that we are presenting are in a summary basis, a way of presenting data on the relational basis, gauging the relationships between current financial results with prior financial results. While there is an abundance of specific data presented, the graphs are used more to identify those relationships. In these graphs, we compare our current actual results to current budget, which is prorated, and current actual results to our current benchmarks, which is our expected amounts for any given month. We also compare year-to-date actual results to prior year-to-date actual results, year-to-date actual results to year-to-date budget and year-to-date benchmarks, as well as current month to prior month and current month to the same month in the prior year. So there's a lot of relationships in the data that we'll be presenting and covering tonight so you can hopefully understand those relationships a little better. Starting on page 3 of the summary for the financial data presents the net usage and cash balances for the general fund. The blue bars going across the bottom of the graph indicate the net usage of cash, whether more or less money came in than that which was spent. The red and green lines going across the graph indicate the year-to-date net usage of cash and cash balances for the current fiscal year and the prior fiscal year, respectively. Flipping the page to page 4, there's a lot of information on the slide, but we're going to break it down into two distinct slides to help you absorb the information. But first, you must also understand that some of this information comes from other sources. And to that end, we will first start with the dashboards. So moving to the revenue dashboard, which in your packet is on page 7. Looking at this graph, the top monetary schedule details overall budget to actual and the cumulative difference. The bigger graph on the right provides monthly information supporting the year-to-date information from the top schedule. Those are indicated by the blue bars versus the blue line running horizontally across the graph. The green bars there are the monthly revenue receipts, while the blue bar is representing the benchmark or what we expect to receive for that month. The graph on the left provides a zoomed-in view of the gap between that green bar that is vertical and the horizontal blue bar. And that gap is represented in the lower left-hand corner, which is the actual versus budget side, budget graph on this page, where the green bars represent revenue that was brought in excess of the benchmark, which is to the right of 0. And then the red bar to the left of 0 represents revenue that came in under the benchmark. That same format is applied to the expenditure dashboard. So the expenditure dashboard is on page 8 of your summary. So again, you see year-to-date actual versus the year-to-date budget with that cumulative difference, the graphing of the monthly expenditures versus the blue line, which represents the benchmarks for that month, and then the monthly difference in that lower left-hand corner of actual versus budget, detailing in a zoomed-in view of what that gap is between actual and benchmark. So we're using the page on graph 4 as the basis that I first brought up. We're going to use that as the basis and break the information into 2 slides. So starting with revenues, if revenues came in evenly prorated over the year, the budget would be resembled by the light blue diagonal line that goes across the graph in an inclining fashion. However, revenues are received unevenly and cyclically, represented by the red bars across the bottom, which represent our monthly benchmarks for revenue. These are provided by the dashboard calculations that we previously covered. These can be compared to the actual results on a monthly basis, represented by the blue bars that run across the bottom of the graph also. If you look at the green line that is running diagonally about halfway across the graph, that is a year-to-date cumulative amount of the actual results of the monthlies that are in the blue. So it's accumulating the blue on a year-to-date basis. And this green line has an inverse relationship to the orange line. So as we receive the revenue cumulatively coming in, represented by the green, of course the orange line will be declining, which is the amount that we have yet to receive in the budget. Taking the second part of page 4, this provides year-to-date relationships. The dark purple line represents our current year-to-date benchmarks, while the light purple line represents our prior year-to-date benchmarks. Again, this is the same green line that we had on the prior slide, which represents our current actual results. So as you can see, we are currently collecting revenues in excess of our current and prior year's benchmarks. So now we're going to bring all that information back together, and this gives us our graph that is presented on page 4, which is our results of operations on the revenue side. Here we're comparing the current results on a monthly basis, again indicated by the blue and red bars across the bottom. Cumulative data is represented by all the lines that go across the graph. This data supports the analysis that the city is currently operating ahead of schedule and is in excess of current budget projections. Moving to the graph on page 5, this represents data for the results of operations for expenditures. Again, we will break this down into 2 slides to help understand it. You'll notice that the graphing follows the same format as we presented for the revenue side. Expenditures are more evenly dispersed throughout the year, so the actual results, which is the green line, do closely mimic the prorated budget line represented by the blue diagonal going across the graph. Again, the monthly results are presented by the blue and red bars across the bottom, with actual results being in blue and the benchmarks that are in red. Here, the green bar is again our current year-to-date, which, as explained earlier, has an inverse relationship to the orange line, which represents our balance to expend to meet budget. Presenting the year-to-date relationship on the second part of the graph on page 5. The dark purple represents our current year-to-date benchmarks, while again the light purple represents our prior year-to-date benchmarks. And as explained earlier, the green line represents our current actual results. So again here you can see we're currently expending resources at a lesser rate than our current and prior year benchmarks. So again, we bring both those slides back together to have the full graph that we're presenting on page 5 for the expenditures for the general fund. Recombining all this information is providing a picture for the results of operations for the expenditures. Again, we're comparing the current results on a monthly basis by the red and blue bars and cumulative data represented by the lines across the graph. And again, a real quick analysis of these relationships supports again that the analysis of the city is currently operating under budget for the expenditures. Moving to page 6 is a simple graph compared to the others, and it focuses solely on whether we are over or under budget, where the previous graphs were data specific to operations, the money received and money expended. This is simply looking at whether we are over or under budget. Following the same format, the monthly results are represented by the orange bars running across the bottom of the graph. The positive bars in this instance, where they are above 0, represent an ending result of being under budget. Should the orange bar drop below 0, that would mean that the city was operating over budget. The declining blue line is the city's budget prorated by 12 equal expenditures of the balance to expend. The purple line represents actual results of operations. So again, from this graph, you can easily determine that the city has run under budget all year and is currently at 8% under budget for expenditures. Moving to the hospitality taxes, starts on page 9 in your packet. There are 4 graphs that are presented for the hospitality taxes fund that carry the exact same format of both the revenues and expenditures and whether we're over or under budget that we just covered for the general fund. So I'm not going to cover those 4 graphs again. However, for the hospitality fund, we do represent 2 additional graphs. These are present to give us a snapshot of the performance of the hospitality tax fund on an annual basis, which is presented here, as well as a 4-year basis that will be represented on the next slide. And that next slide, the current slide is page 14 of your packet if you were following along there. In this particular graph, the red line represents the amount of taxes that we would need to receive each month to meet budget. So that is our budget dollar for the hospitality taxes fund divided by 12, which is an equal basis for the entire year. The blue line represents the amount of taxes that are actually received. So comparing the blue line to the red line, you can see that we are currently receiving more hospitality taxes each month than the amount that's required on a monthly basis to meet budget. The green line running below the red line represents the remaining amount of taxes that would need to be received for the remaining months to meet budget. The relationship there is as the blue line continues to run above the red line, then the green line will continue to have a declining basis. Moving to page 15, this is representing the 4-year trend in hospitality taxes. Again, the blue line represents actual results and receipts and has historically bounced around the trend line indicated in yellow. What is important here is while it does bounce around, it does continue to have an inclining rate as our economy continues to perform well and grow. Now, in any given month, it looks like the jumps in revenue are large. So it's really, in this particular graph, to pay attention to the scale of the graph. This is a very close view of this data. So even the large jumps across the trend line with the blue line only represents about a $20,000 jump in a $2 million budget in any given month. The final fund that we represent in the summary package is for the stormwater fund. Again, it has the same 4 graphs as covered in the general fund, and it has the same format as both the general fund and the hospitality taxes fund. So the format there carries the same format, so it'll be easy to understand between the three different funds of the data being presented. So going back to the very beginning of your summary financial package, which is on page 2, all of the data represented in these graphs are used to create this one page, this one snapshot summary for the three funds that we regularly present. And those three funds, again, are the general fund, the hospitality taxes fund, and the stormwater fund. This snapshot provides you a window into our results of operations on any given, or on a single day, The results we're presenting this month, and this is the page in front of you, is for the current month for December 31st. That is that snapshot window at December 31st, 2016. These results presented are for the current month, which are either higher or lower, represented by the red arrows, than the prior month, which is indicated by the this month column, and they are either higher or lower than the same month in the prior year, indicated by the column labeled this year. And the last column there, labeled balance, gives those certain balances as of the last day of the month, again, which is represented here as December 31st, 2016. So with that summary covering the graphs, moving back to the information that we typically cover, you can see here that the general fund revenue for the month of December is just shy of $5.6 million, with expenditures of $9.3 million. The expenditure rate there at December 31st is 8% under budget, and we have a carrying cash balance in the general fund of $6.2 million. Referencing the dashboards, we have a cumulative positive benchmark variance of $1.7 million. Moving to the hospitality fund, we have revenue of $1,020,000, which is 3% over budget, expenditures of $250,946, and a carrying cash balance in the hospitality taxes fund of $1.7 million. And finally, in the stormwater fund, we have revenue of $24,597 with expenditures of $943,000, expenditures of $112,000, which is 33% under budget presently, with a carrying cash balance of $943,000. So this is a very quick introduction or a covering explanation of the graphs that we're presenting to each month. Would like to open up any questions you may have or suggestions, information that you would like to receive in addition to this, information that you may feel is not necessarily or not necessary, but any questions you may have.
Council? David, I know that we've relied less in the last several years on projected trend analysis and have done some more work in terms of scrutinize those numbers. As we continue to use the dashboard and establish trends from the historical data that we're now compiling, how are we using that to do projections and to establish some trend analysis to help us do projections for budgeting and expenditures?
Right. From a budgeting standpoint on the revenue side is really, that's where we start with the projections. Excuse me. It really depends on the line item as to what theory of projection we may be applying to it. Historically, or you go back a number of years, we were applying trend analysis to almost all of our line item revenues, where we were projecting taxes on property that has been annexed or is going to be annexed. We're no longer doing that. We do project those trends to get to a number of what we may expect, but when it comes to the budget, we budget very conservatively, and we do a lot of those line items historically. Some of the real volatile line items like building permits, this year we're already $300,000 over budget for building permits. When we're doing the analysis of that particular line item, we do we set a base that's recurring, and then we look at the projects that are out there that we consider, may not be recurring projects. So we don't build that into our recurring budget. So those amounts that come in over budget are those exact amounts for business licenses, building permits, inspections, other permits that are not building permits, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. For those line items, that is just excess revenue that rolls in the fund balance by the end of the year. And then there are other line items. Again, some of them are very just historical. Some of them have an element of projection in them that are volatile lines. We have to, account for some of that volatility in that projection for the next year.
I may be reading too much into it, but in the hospitality fund graph, it appears with the historical data that we've got now that we're beginning to establish those, looks like couple of months a year where it really peaks and also where it really dips. I mean, is that accurate? I mean, it looks like that same piece of the graph is almost replicating itself every year now. Is it?
It is replicating at a little higher level. Mm-hmm. Inevitably, January and February are our lowest months in the year following Christmas. And November, December are typically some of our higher months as people are out and about, maybe shopping for Christmas. While they're out, they grab a meal. But following February, when you get into March and April, those numbers start rising again. And that's, you're looking at the activity, that's what's causing some of the volatility there. And again, looking at the graph, the jumps look big because the graph jumps maybe an inch on the graph, but the scale is so large that jump is really minimal in looking at a $2 million budget over a year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beginning to be recognizable in that regard. Others?
David, I know we're going to go down to Columbia next week, and the Municipal Association is going to get us up to speed on business licenses and how those things are potentially going to be changing. Have you heard anything that might be coming down the pipe for us?
They are in current discussions with the legislature, but how it affects us is really very minimal. The model that the cities statewide that we're projecting through that legislation is the model that we're already on. So the impact to us is very minimal. The only thing we'll have to account for will be the biannual adjustments as the businesses move between rate classes depending on the profitability as determined by the IRS. So, that requirement will require us to make those adjustments every 2 years, where right now we're doing them on average about every 3 years. So that's probably the biggest change for us, is recognizing that we're going to have to make some of those adjustments every 2 years.
Thank you. David, we appreciate your time and explanation, and if there are other questions, I'm sure he'll be glad to help you with any of those reports. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have a petitioner this evening, and Ms. Allison Ross is with us this evening, and is going to bring us some information in regards to a project that Leadership Greer is doing this year. And Allison is a member of that group and works with CPW, and we're glad to have you this evening, and want to hear a little bit more about your upcoming project.
Well, good evening. My name is Allison Rauch. Do work for Greer CPW, but tonight I'm speaking on behalf of Leadership Greer. I'd like to at least acknowledge two classmates here in the audience. We've got Patrick Dollar and Eugenia Hyatt. And just wanted to update you all as a group about this year's Leadership Greer project. We have decided to revitalize the playground at 220 Biblebrook Drive, which is the Northgate Manor, part of Greer's Housing Authority. So we are super excited to get this project underway, and it was originally brought to our attention from a police officer who services that area and goes into the community. So if you all have been out in that area for any period of time, you know that that playground and that basketball court has not seen attention in many, many years. So we set a lofty goal of $40,000 that we would like to do several things there in phases depending on the funds that we are able to raise. First thing, and it's going to be, we hope, pretty easy to accomplish, is resurfacing the basketball court and putting in new goals for the kids. There's about 40 kids who live in that community and call that place home. The second one is a picnic table and shelter so the families there can have birthday parties, get-togethers, cookouts, and really feel like they are a part of the community. The last phase that we would like to accomplish is installing new playground equipment for the older kids to play on. And I do have some flyers that I'd like to give to you all that we're distributing in the community, as well as play a very brief video. Our class president, Steve Pardue, and FET Greenville, we were able to create a video that is swirling around on social media to help drum up some support. So I appreciate y'all's time and letting me speak in this very busy evening for you all, but we certainly welcome any financial support or any connections that you all may have that could help us complete this goal and make this such a great project. So thank you very much.
Outdated and unsafe playground equipment, an old basketball court, not the most inviting place to celebrate or raise a family. That's what you see when you come to Greer Housing Authority Community at 220 Biblebrook Drive in Greer, South Carolina. Hi, I'm Steve Pardue, President of Leadership Greer Class 37, a 9-month program that involves completing a project from start to finish by May 2017. This year's class project, to renovate this forgotten playground and bring life, light, and hope to the people in the Biblebrook community and give them a better place to live.
These children very rarely get to feel special. And when they are given something new and shiny, they feel that specialness that our children maybe get to feel all the time. These children do not get to feel that. And that is something that's important that I think every child needs to feel at least once in their life. And to give them that little bit of specialness is something that everyone should take part in. And if they could see the light in these kids' eyes when they get that, it would really touch their hearts and know that what they do makes a difference.
Our goal is to raise $40,000 to install a new playground, picnic shelter, and basketball goals, breathing new life into this community in need. We know it's a lofty goal, and it'll take 6 weeks for the playground equipment to arrive. With your help and donations, we can make a big difference. Check out the Leadership Greer Facebook page or email us for more information. Thank you.
Help us play it forward.
So again, thank you guys so much for your time, and I think you were able to see just a few kids in that video on the back end, and they are just so excited about the potential that this project has for us. So I did want to also mention to you all we have an upcoming oyster roast to raise money for this project. It's going to be February 24th. Location is still to be determined, so reach out to the Greer Chamber for more information on that, but it's going to be from 6 to 9 in the evening, and tickets are going to be $40, so we hope to see you all there.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just a couple of items this evening. Are looking forward. I believe that we have about 4 or 5 of you that will be traveling to Columbia next week to participate in the advanced Municipal Elected Officials Institute. There will be training taking place next week there, and then also we'll be participating in the statewide Hometown Legislative Action Day program there on Wednesday. So we look forward to several of you being able to make that trip. We'll have time with our state representatives as well as in training. Also remind you that our local Chamber of Commerce, our Greater Greer Chamber of Commerce annual meeting is going to be on February the 16th. We are a sponsor for that event, a table sponsor for that event, and if you would like to join us at that event, I would need to get information from you about that. We'll have I'll have an email coming to you that you can respond to on that as well. As a reminder, our council retreat is scheduled for March 7th and 8th. We are still soliciting input from you on the format and topics to be discussed during that process. But again, that is our council retreat, March 7th and 8th. And I do need some additional feedback from you, particularly your desires on the schedule for that, start and stop times and topics to be covered. So we look forward to that. And as we heard tonight, we'll have additional information for you on the oyster roast that will be supporting the Play It Forward project. And we are working with our recreation department to look how we can partner with those folks as well to make that project successful. As you may be aware, that is not a designated city park for us, and it is a private playground area there through the Greer Housing Authority, but they are a great partner of ours. We certainly support Leadership Greer, and we want that project to be successful. So we would like to participate, and we'll certainly offer our participation in that as well. A couple of things just to make you aware of. We are moving forward. We have now received final plans on what we refer to as our Brushy Creek demonstration sidewalk project. Those plans have been submitted to us by the engineer and the design architect, and we will be submitting those to bid. So we are hopeful that that will be a late spring or early summer project for us, that we would go to construction on that demonstration project, moving forward with that. And then you may also receive some inquiries from some of your constituents relative to our leaf season pickup. According to our schedule, we are in our last 3 weeks of that program, so we want to make sure that folks get those things out to the curb so we can get those picked up. And if you should be aware that there's an area that we need to give a little extra attention to, just let us know. We want to make sure we get all those collected. But all the leaves are off the trees, and most of those have been picked up, but there's a few folks that are continuing to try to get those out to the curb. We want to make sure we get those as well. And last but not least, I would like to have the opportunity to make a formal introduction to you this evening. As you are aware, we've had an opportunity to discuss our path forward relative to our selection process for our next chief of police. That process has gone really well for us. As I advised you earlier, we had 50 applications for that position. We were able to narrow that field to 25 more highly qualified candidates out of that group. So 25 of that 50 met all of the qualifications that we were seeking for that position. Of that group of 25, we identified 8 additional folks, 8 of those 25 that we believe their background and experience really shined, and so we wanted to take a little closer look at that. Had an opportunity to really dig deeper into those 8, and through that process, what we discovered is that one of our own kept rising to the top in that process. So it is my pleasure, and of course with consultation with you as we've worked through this process, to introduce Captain Matt Hamby, who very shortly will be designated as Chief of Police for the Greer Police Department, and would like to ask him to come forward to be introduced and recognized by council, and to offer any comments he may like to make as well.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to extend my most sincere appreciation to you as a council and also each of you individually for the tremendous opportunity you're giving me to serve as our next police chief. It's something I've been working towards my whole career, trying to prepare myself for this opportunity, and it's truly a dream come true for me personally, so I want to thank you for that. I've been very fortunate to have served under two really good police chiefs, or maybe even great police chiefs, I would say, with Chief Crisp and Chief Reynolds. I believe that both of them have, in their own unique way, taken a department and when they first arrived and then as they left it in much better condition than it was in which they found it. So I know the bar has been set high, and I realize that I have big shoes to fill, so, but I assure you that I will work really hard to do what I can to lead our department into even greater heights. I think the climate now couldn't be any better to be a police chief in this community. We have probably unprecedented support from our community right now, which I think we've all seen and experienced. Most cities across this country cannot say that. There are many places I would not want to be police chief in, but Greer is definitely where I want to be. There's no other place I'd rather be. We have excellent staff, the highest caliber we've ever experienced here. I believe many members of our command staff could be chiefs as well. So if it wasn't me standing here, you would have a couple others to pick from, I believe. I assure you that our direction that we're going is not going to change dramatically. The challenge will be to just simply improve upon what we've already built and not draw back on the successes we've already experienced. So we will move forward, and we'll be making this place even better than it already is. Of course, you already know this, but if there's ever anything I can do for any of you, please reach out and call me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. I'll answer any questions or comments if you have any. I'm sure we'll be talking a lot in the future.
Council, anything that
Congratulations.
like to add?
Congrats, yeah.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. As Captain Hamby indicated, he has worked under two of our most recent chiefs over his career period. But Ms. Duncan whispered in my ear a moment ago that while Captain Hamby has worked with two, she has worked with 7. That has absolutely nothing to do with age. That happens to do with tenure of those chiefs. Very good. Mayor and Council, the only item for consideration in executive session is what is published in your agenda. It will be to receive some additional legal advice concerning litigation involving the sale of the Allen Bennett property.
Goes back to Parks Boozer. Beeson. Council, we have one appointment to boards and commissions. The Election Commission has a vacancy. Do we have a nomination for the Election Commission? So I will assume not this evening. With that, then, we will move to items of old business. 2 items of old business this evening, the first of which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 34-2016. This is an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of any and all interest in certain real property in the city of Greer. Council, given the fact that we have had 2 presentations tonight, as well as additional information that needs to be shared by the city's attorney, I would like for us, if you see fit, to hold this item over until the scheduled executive session following item B. Would I have a motion in that regard? So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to hold second and final reading of ordinance 34-2016 over until after executive session. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we will consider second and final reading of ordinance number 1-2017, an ordinance amending the City of Greer Code of Ordinance, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 5, Purchasing Rules and Procedures, Section 2-293, Small Purchases, Section 2-294, Regular Purchases, Section 2-295, Emergency Purchases, Section 2-296, Central Storehouse, and Section 2-297, and the other general rules. We had some discussion in this regard. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Mayor, as I discussed with you and Mr. Driggers prior to the meeting, on page 3, section 7, where the city administrator, if the cost of the item is estimated to be over $10,000 but less than $35,000, opens the bids and awards the contract to the vendor most advantageous to the city. I'd like to also add to that, except in emergency situations, in the event that there is only one bidder, the city administrator will bring the bid to council for final approval or denial. And I would make that motion to make that change.
Have a motion to, as an amendment to that.
Right.
Okay. We've got a motion to amend the ordinance. Do I hear a second? Second. Floor is open for discussion in regards to the amended ordinance.
Can you say that again for us, Mr. Bettis?
Yeah, the reason I do this is
She needs to amend her second, right? Gotcha.
we'll do that. The reason I do this, and I talked to the administrator about it, he is not unaware of the situation that might occur every now and then where we only have one bidder, and he likes to bring that to us already, but I'd like to codify that. What I'm saying is add, except in emergency situations where it may not be time to do that, where he has to do something immediately in that price range. In the event that there's only one bidder, the city administrator will bring that one bid to council for the final approval or denial.
We're gonna go back and correct the second. Is there a MO or procedure for that now that exists?
It's just a matter of process for us, or a matter of procedure. As Mr. Bettis indicates, the code doesn't require it, or it would not in its original form. It is our practice, because with one bid, we want to make sure that if there are any issues or concerns. So again, I have done that as a matter of practice, but I would not have been required to do that. By codifying that, it would continue the practice, but it would also be a requirement that we would do that. So absolutely no problem whatsoever in being able to do that.
Thank you, sir. Let's correct I need to correct a past action. Ms. Albert, you had the second on the original. If you will amend then to the amend your second then for Mr. Bettis' amendment.
Yeah, do I need to say all that?
You offer us, yeah, a second to the amendment?
You can if you want to.
I don't think I could. I would like to amend my motion, my second,
All right.
on his, regarding the article pertaining to the bids.
All right, we've got an amended motion to second and final reading of ordinance 1-2017 and a second now. Floor is open for further discussion. Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, in executive session, we have one matter before us this evening. It's consideration of a contractual matter pertaining to the sale of Allen Bennett property located at the corner of Waydampton Boulevard and Memorial Drive, and to receive legal advice concerning a potential lawsuit involving the sale of the Allen Bennett property. Do I hear a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, on executive session, we've considered one matter, that is contractual matter pertaining to the sale of Allen Bennett property located at the corner of Wade Hampton Boulevard and Memorial Drive, and receive legal advice concerning a potential lawsuit involving the sale of the Allen Bennett property. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert, Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we've held over an item of old business, which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 34-2016. Mr. Driggers, does that require action to put back on the agenda or not?
No, sir, you've already taken action to place it for consideration after executive session.
Second and final reading of ordinance number 34-2016, an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of any and all interest in certain real property inside the city of Greer. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we accept ordinance number 34-2016 under the amended terms provided to us tonight by 313 Memorial Drive LLC as part of Project Forest.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion with the amendments.
With the amendments?
Yes.
Okay. Floor is open for discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to table or reject Article 34,
We've got a
2016.
motion on the floor already.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to make a comment. I'd just like to state for the record that from the very start, that we tried to be fair with this process, and we tried to do what was right for the citizens of Greer.
Others?
I'd like to echo Councilman Griffin's comments and say that we've been very diligent about the process, and I'm very confident about our process.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, statements?
I think that we were definitely fair in our process for doing the contractual process.
And it has been said that we had an offer forced upon us, and I think that's the furthest from the truth. Nothing has ever been forced on this council. I'll stand by that.
Other comments? Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes?
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert, Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we are adjourned.